Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidekt, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. I laugh because today is actually going to be business casual, but Casual Magic Casual Magic is brought to you by Coalesce Apparel, CoolStuffInc, and Archidekt. Go there, say my codes, help them, help me. But today, I have brought on my dear friend Alex Kessler on for the umpteenth time because
third time. The charm.
I guess, yeah, third time. Let's go with third time. Because of the fact that recently there was this muttering that there's a capital company that wants to do a hostile takeover of the stockholders board of Hasbro to try to spin off Wizards of the Coast, and they fronted yeah, well, kind of spin off WotC and like some other weird like financial shenanigans. They're like, Hasbro's doing stuff that's bad. WotC could be good. That's their spin, at least. And they put up Johnny Magic, the greatest Magic player of all time, and also hedge fund manager and millionaire, to be the guy to sell it to us plebs, which is great for them, but maybe not necessarily what we want. Because when capital companies or companies with management in their name go into companies and buy them, that usually means a pump and dump. And I'm not sure that that's what we want out of our game. But I am an English major and not a business major. I have a lot of skills, but this is one that I am a little weak on. So I thought I would call my dear friend who actually owns and runs his own business and has to do with this stuff on the daily, and see what we can learn about both being smart outside of Magic, running a business, and how Hasbro is going to have to deal with this shenanigans. How's it going, Alex?
Good. Thank you. So yes, small corrections at the start. So
should I redo my intro?
No, you're fine. I think this, or unless let me explain it, and then you can say if you want to repeat it, or just let me have said what you said, but with slightly more detail. So a hedge fund. Let me get names as I explain this. So a hedge fund.
Sorry, I was just like going off my head.
Yeah.
Like all these, there's a lot of names and capitals and stuff, but yeah, go ahead.
So a hedge fund called AltaFox Capital, who I believe John Finkel is one of the founding members of, or one of the people running it, is an activist investor group. The other person kind of in charge of it is famous, and we'll talk about him in a second, but has made a name for himself in like finding niche divisions of companies that could be more profitably, the word could be exploited, or could be more properly managed and fostered to have a better effect on their stock price, etc. And has partnered with John Finkel and other investors or hedge funds. So it's a bunch of different people with money in it to act as a activist investor, which basically means activist investors are groups that invest into companies to a significant amount of percentage points, where they're able to now start nominating board seats, and through those start influencing the management of the company to do things.
Yes.
And I can tell you from past experiences what that has looked like in the past, and that they're doing this with the express goal, which if you go to freethewizards.com, has this all kind of written down, and that's their kind of like mission statement, is they're trying to spin Wizards of the Coast off from Hasbro. And there's a lot of reasons for that we can get into, but that's the gist of it, right? So activist investors have put enough money into Hasbro and bought enough stock of it, because it's a publicly traded company, to be able to spin Wizards off as its own company. And the mechanics of that are interesting, and we're going to get into it. And there's levels of why it is a good idea, why it's a bad idea, why things that their announcement today makes me more worried about it than the information I had yesterday when this conversation first started happening, when it was first reported on the Wall Street Journal, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. And that's why I brought Kessler on, because I know the details as read, but I'm also I know where my knowledge gaps are. And like now here's the thing, spinning off a company is a thing that happens all the time, right? Like companies regularly, multiple times a year, you'll see companies spin off a division. Either it's because that division is not performing adequately and they're like, you can stand on your own, we don't want to invest more money in you, you can handle your business. And they can go in and just be like, okay, we're just going to, maintain what we're doing and service our current customers and then move on, and the old company can take that money and reinvest it into new lines of products or do whatever they're going to do, or they can be like, wow, you guys are doing really really good, and if we spin you off into your own division, you can go and grow and invest yourself and do things and let us take our money back and rebuild our company in a different direction. But the way these things work, that spin-off mothership, I guess, would still have a large share of the new company
Yeah.
sometimes.
I guess before we jump too far, I do want to give like some amount of background on
Actually,
why I
yeah,
know
why
these
don't you
things.
do this, man? I'm just talking out my ass.
Well, so to give like why I know things beyond just like being able to read the report that they announced and then also paying attention to the Hasbro financials. My name is Alex Kessler. I'm the host of the Masters of Modern podcast,
Oh, yeah.
TikToker, game designer, whatever. But my day job beyond being a magic content creator is I own a toy company. So I own a company called Kess. We're the largest hoop manufacturer in the world. If you find a hoop at Target, Walmart, like a hula hoop, at those retailers, we're the ones that made them. We do bounce balls, board games, puzzles, et
I own a
cetera, et
lot of your
cetera.
stuff. I like it.
I hope I've given you a lot.
Yeah, you have, and I've bought it myself and bought it for my
Well,
friends.
I until up until this point in my life, and this could change by the time this podcast comes out, do not have a child, and so whenever I have friends with children, it's really fun to send them toys because someone gets to enjoy them. But so, and my background behind that, I've been in the toy industry for my whole life, but as a working adult for the last 15 years. And that included working at a company called Maui Toys that eventually got bought by the fifth largest toy company at the time, Jack Pacific, who dealt with a lot of the things we're going to talk about today. And then eventually I left and started Cast in 2016 and have done all of those things since then. So that's a little bit of my
I didn't realize it
background.
was this recently that you'd started your own company.
Yeah. January 2016 was when we started. And that first year was really like building like sales networks and figuring out locations for stuff and hiring teams to
Did you
do
have
it.
to, like, buy the patent back for, like, hula hoops and things like that
No,
for the
so
other
the
company?
original hula hoop patent, which was my grandfather who invented it. That's like why I've been in this business for so long. So my grandfather invented the hula hoop back in 1956. He had 2,500
Jesus.
patents to his name. He was a Depression era plastics manufacturer, so he started making plastics because he was pulling it off of trash in a trash restructuring plant he started during the Depression, and
The
through
Hudsucker
that.
Proxy movie must have driven you mad then.
Yes, my dad more than me. I've actually never watched it because I like knew it would bug me, and everyone tells me I should, and that for some reason makes me not want to do something.
Yes,
um,
I know the feeling.
but long story short, like that patent has been, patents only last for 20 or so years, and that has been expired for a long time. There are patents that Maui had. So for instance, I am not allowed to make a hula hoop with water in it.
Hmm,
I'm also not allowed to call anything I make a hula hoop. That's actually owned by a different brand called Whammo.
yes.
They also own Frisbee. They own a lot of their valuation generally is considered higher than it probably is from a market pat. Like the amount of sales they have doesn't often match how much they think they're worth because they own brands that are very well known, like Frisbee and
Slinky.
Slink. They might own Slinky.
Maybe?
They own
But
Slip and
yeah,
Slide,
slip and slide.
Frisbee, Hula Hoop, etc. So can't use Hula Hoop. That's why I reference them as hoops because they're not mine. I don't make hula hoops. I make dance hoops, ice hoops. Ice hoops is what our main one is. But okay, so that gives a little bit of a background for me. I also we manufacture all that product. I have a games division. We launched our first game this year called Battle Bosses and do puzzles
We
and stuff
talked
like
about it
that.
the last
So
time you were here.
yeah, and that kind of gives background on like why I know how to manufacture things in toys and to give a little bit more background on why I know stuff here, which is weird.
Mhm. No, the
Uh
dude, I think that's a f
it's my
like,
like
honestly,
secret niche that was always been in mind on the podcast thing, where it's like we talk about modern, but also know how all of these products are made and also are at every toy show. So like we got to preview the do you remember the miniature magic decks?
yes.
We previewed those accidentally because our booth was next to the booth that was making them, and we were the only Magic content creators in the entire building on the day that they were showing them off at Toy Fair. And we were like, can we tweet this and say we're previewing it? And they're like, absolutely. And we like at that time, I think it was the most like retweeted tweet we've ever done on the Masters of Modern account. But
I
okay,
remember that.
so start of the story yesterday at the time of this recording, which was the 16th of February, there was a Wall Street Journal article that came out that basically said that a activist investment group was looking to invest in Hasbro to spin off Wizards of the Coast due to the fact that they were as successful as they were. And the backstory to that is earlier this month, the 2021 financial report for Hasbro came out. And so Hasbro is made about $5 billion worth of sales last year. They're the largest toy company in the world. Of those $5 billion in sales, they had about $750 million worth of profit. Wizards of the
Jeez.
Coast made 1.5 billion worth of sales, and which is twice the size that they were before it from 2020. So in the last 2 years, they doubled their size, which is
Jeez.
also 3 years ahead of schedule of what their plan was. And of their $1.5 billion of contribution to, or I think it's 1.25. I've been missing that up. 1.5 makes math easier in my head. Of that
Mm.
$1.25 billion worth of sales and contribution, they contributed $500 million worth of profit, which means that Wizards of the Coast was 2/3 of all of the profit that Hasbro made last year.
That is completely bananas, especially when you think about what else Hasbro owns. Like,
Yeah,
they own Transformers.
they're the largest toy company in the world. Without Wizards of the Coast, they're the largest toy company in the world, right? They're like evaluated at, I think they're a $17 billion evaluation versus the next, which is Mattel, which is an $11 billion evaluation.
That's insane.
So even if you, and that is relevant to what we're talking about, right? But the gist of it is without Wizards of the Coast, they made $250 million worth of profit, which off of the $4 billion worth of sales is like a 0.7 or a 7% profit margin, which is very bad.
Yeah, for a company of that size, that's almost like catastrophic.
Like companies want to aim for like a 15-ish if they're like that type of margin evaluation is like closer to like what grocery store margins are, like if you're a grocer, and those are like government regulated. You can't be over a certain price, and it's about volume because literally every day an entire new set of your product is put on the store shelves, right? Like
Mm.
there's a pharmaceutical companies and those companies have different margin requirements. So food companies, not pharma, those have insane margins. Pharmaceutical companies are evil, but the gist of it is Hasbro is dealing with a lot of struggles, and we can get kind of into why that is.
Mm.
And the argument, the face argument, and they get more into it in the secondary document they released today, is that if Wizards of the Coast were to split off from Hasbro,
Mm.
so the last piece of that is, even though Wizards of the Coast had that much growth and was doing so fantastically,
Yes.
Hasbro's stock went down because all of their other stuff is messy. And there's a lot of reasons it's messy, but it's messy. And so John Finkel and friends
Mhm.
kind of realized that if you were to spin off Hasbro, which would kind of act like basically as a stock split, so there are two ways to spin off a company. You can sell it to there are a few ways to spin off, right? You can sell it to someone, you can just separate it out. What they would probably do in this instance is they would do a stock split. So like companies do this all the time. Facebook did it, or Apple did it a few years ago, where you like every stock you have is now two stocks,
Yes.
because it like to buy it's more expensive, and this lets us divvy up what stocks mean to everyone. And every person who owns stocks doubles the amount of stocks they own. The value of those stocks generally get halved. On average, it goes up. Like you make that decision because you think they would go up from doing so, but in general they get halved. And there's reasons to do that. In the
Yes.
case of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, if they were to say split their stock, but then half of those splits are all now Wizards of the Coast, the company, and half of them are Hasbro. Hasbro still owns the majority of share of those stocks, and the investors in
Mm.
Hasbro still own the same percentage of Wizards of the Coast that they owned Hasbro. But now that
Mm.
stock is being evaluated on the 200% growth over the last 2 years on the $500 million worth of profit contribution off of, the brands that are doing well with Wizards, the potential for
Mhm.
growth with Wizards, and the fact that its audience is a very different model than Hasbro's model. And Hasbro is still the largest toy company in the world. Like,
Mm.
removing $1.5 billion worth of sale from Hasbro's market cap doesn't, like, it hurts its profitability, and they have to deal with that. But so does Mattel, right? Like, the people they're
Right.
comparing themselves apples to apples with are also facing those problems. And the argument is that Wizards isn't facing those problems. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But yeah, so that's like the brief overview as we knew yesterday.
That's that's a lot. I mean, just on the surface of it, that's a lot to think about. Like, those numbers are astronomical, first off.
Yes.
Just like in real world terms, that is absurd that in 2 years of pandemic, the company that makes D&D and Magic is the most profitable, 2/3 of the largest toy company in the world,
Yeah,
right?
like, to give reference, when I was at Jack Pacific, which at the time was the fifth largest toy company in the world, so it was Lego, Mattel, Hasbro, Spin Master, Jack Pacific. Um, they were worth $700 million when we joined them, and then by the time we left, they were worth 500. That is as much dollars as Hasbro made in profit total.
That's so crazy. Like, it's just such an unbelievable, I mean, when you think about the record profits that WotC has been making, not even like everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, Secret Layers and stuff." I'm like, "Look, Secret Layers sell a lot, but Secret Layers also cost a lot to make in licensing terms and whatnot."
Uh,
But well, maybe up or down, give or take, but not as much as just the raw product that they're moving. Like, Ikoria was a best-selling set of all time when it came out in the middle of the first lockdown. Every single thing they printed sold out.
well, and they
Like,
sold they had eight they sold more there were more different cards printed last year than ever before, right? Like,
yeah,
they've also significantly increased product releases. They've also, like, Secret
we
Lair
complain
was
about it,
quoted.
but,
Sure.
like, real talk, everything they make is selling. I mean, we complain like, "Oh my god, we're getting inundated and flooded and stuff." Yeah, but the market has obviously shown that it can handle this and some,
Right.
and that is insane.
Well, and to give, like, so you mentioned Secret Lair. So that was one thing that was also in the breakdown for the report, was like different areas of growth, and
Mm,
one of them was, there's a lot of interesting stuff. One is that digital content, which includes D&D Beyond and Arena, only accounted for 27% of revenue from that year,
mm,
and which is significantly lower than every person thought it was. Right? Everyone was like, "Oh, they're getting rid of paper Magic and paper D&D. They're going to digital content stuff only," and it's like only about a fourth of the amount of what they were doing. The other key piece is that, like, the exploration into other brands and genres was directly pointed at as one of the main key focuses of growth for Wizards, which is the Secret of the Layer cards, right? It's the Walking Dead set, it's the Stranger
street
Things set this last year, it's this year it's going to be the Street Fighter thing and the Warhammer thing, and that's extending, right? We're doing Lord of the Rings next year. And it was also kind of part of the, like, proof in the pudding that, like, Wizards is able to capitalize on markets differently than the toy industry. So, like, that's
mm.
that's part of this. So I don't, like, we're gonna get into a little bit of, like, the last 5 years in toys in a second,
Sure.
if that's okay to
Oh, dude,
jump
this
into.
this is I am living for this.
All right, cool. So the last 5 years of toys has been weird, and as I said, it's like I launched Cast in 2016, right? And within a year in 2017, Toys R Us went out of business. And the
Mhm.
loss of Toys R Us is being felt significantly to this day in ways that, like, real world people don't really know. First off, Toys R Us went out of business not because it wasn't profitable, right? Like, Toys R Us went out of business because uh uh Bain Capital, I believe it was, which
Yes.
bought them and made them private, and through that private buyout put a significant amount of debt on the company to make giant dollars for themselves.
Yes.
Toys R Us was not able to pay off that debt that was brought on
Mhm.
for people to make a big bonus when they became a private company, and that's why they went out of business. It's not because, like, they were profitable year in year out. They had stores that were doing
Yeah.
well. They had, it wasn't like they weren't killing it. They weren't a growth company in the way that they were maybe in the past, because they did have competition from other places, but they were doing well. But what we lost with Toys R Us in the industry is a SKU count with a large enough retailer that can launch new product. So right now, the largest retailer in the country is Walmart. Second is Target. Third is Amazon. And if you don't want to count Amazon, it's Walgreens,
Hmm.
with maybe five below being up there as well, but is a value oriented retailer. And all of those stores have a very limited number of space that they can allocate towards toys. Right, they can maybe get an extra aisle out of there, but they're not a toy store. They're a store that has a toy section, versus Toys R Us, which was the entire footprint was toys, which meant that if you had an idea, if you had a cool new product and you had something that you can convince the Toys R Us team to buy into, they had the space to try it out. They were so much more willing than any retailer is now to try out new
Mm-hmm.
ideas and new product. And that's where Air Hogs comes from. That's where Byakugan comes from. That's where like all of these different like famous toy brands, Transformers, like all of this
Mm-hmm.
comes from Toys R Us or a toy retailer. Because before that there was KB Toys, right? And they're also gone for
Right.
the same reason, basically.
Yeah.
And so without that gone, the ability for toy companies to come up with new brands means that you have to either launch it with a TV show that you produce yourself through Nickelodeon or Netflix or whatever, which is what Spin Master does, right? That's where Paw Patrol came from. You have to spend $5 million plus on an ad campaign for that product, which means that knocks out basically every new company on the planet. Or you have to find weird other venues.
Mm.
Kickstarter is one of them, right? There's a lot of products that get created on Kickstarter as a launch point, especially in the game space, where it's the easiest way to do that as a proving point. I now have an audience I can build from there. You can do launches with like weird PR campaigns, but like the other side is like now the next big player, which lets anyone be on there, is Amazon. But Amazon is
Mm-hmm.
like making a YouTube channel. when
Yes.
when I come up with a product in Amazon, I have to put all of the dollars and investment up front, bring in enough product so that if it does well on Amazon, I have it, and then hope it does well. In the same way that like when we were making a top decking or when you make a TV show for YouTube, you just like, here's a X amount of dollar investment. I hope it does well. Did it not do well? I guess I didn't make money. And like so Toys R Us, but Toys R Us would buy 700 stores worth of product with replenishment program. So they would buy new product. If that product is selling, they would buy new versions of it every week. They would buy enough of it at the forefront that you'd be able to cut tooling onto it and invest all the money to build the product. And that's where a lot of the innovation from the toy world would come from. And then once it was
Mm.
proven there, you could go to Toys R Us, you could go to Walmart and say, hey, it's doing well. Or you can go to Target, you can go to Walmart and say, hey, it's doing well at Toys R Us. You should be carrying this as well, and build into it. Now that doesn't really exist. So that was
Right.
2017. Then and then basically
That
right
must have been
after
weird
that,
for you, especially because that was right after your company started,
oh,
right?
I shipped $30,000 worth of dropped up balls to Toys R Us and I've never been paid for it.
Damn you, Romney.
Yeah, there's like insurance stuff that helped it, but yeah, that is just money that is gone, and I am sad to this day about it. There's also what that actually problem is one of the reasons all these like Toys R Us is coming back moments have
Mm-hmm.
failed. It's because there is almost no toy company that will ship to anyone that has actual dollar values that made money off of Toys R Us going bankrupt, which are the only people that still own the brand, right? So that small amount of money is not even close to comparable what they owned Mattel, what they owned Hasbro, what they owned Jax, what they owned Spin Master. There are companies that they owned hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to that just they never got paid off of. And that's what happens when this happens. But
I
like,
mean, that's the glory of vulture capitalism, right? Like,
right,
you
which is a
know,
little bit of the fear of what's happening with what's
right.
going on here. The next thing was like Trump got elected, and we don't have to get too into that, but he also started a trade war with China,
Yeah. Which is
uh,
where all the toys are made.
which included toys. That was then followed by COVID, um, which I don't. It's this one thing that I don't know if you've heard of it. It happened in 2020 and then 2021,
Oh,
and maybe
that's
still
gone now,
happening.
isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
we're all free and
uh,
clear.
and then that caused the significant amount of issues we're facing now, which is, labor is up across the country. And more importantly, there's a massive labor shortage because a significant amount of the population is no longer around, either due to retirement or catching a disease that was deadly, or a library of other reasons, and that wealth that came from those people trickling down through inheritance. Plus, you have a layer of just enough people were able to be given enough assistance to be able to create new gigs for themselves, where they're able to afford their lives, or have moved to places with lower cost of living because they're able to
Sure, sure,
do.
sure.
There's all these reasons that there's these issues, and so that's happening. That you also have material shortages, right? So during
Yes.
COVID, when there were hard shutdowns, these machines that make chips, for instance, for light up product, but or like silicon chips for all things,
Mhm.
shut down, and to turn them on takes a year.
Oof.
And so, like, they kept some of it on, but the build back up to the point where you're able to do that. Not to
And
mention,
especially when you're talking the volumes that we're talking at, because it's not just toys, it's literally these chips are used for everything.
that's why there's
You
a
know,
car shortage. It's the car
phones,
shortage that happened.
cars,
Yeah.
lumber, like all of the thing like the sheer my wife works in the construction industry and I've been helping them out over like this last few months. And just the fact that like simple things like concrete or like, you know, lumber or nails, because all these factories that built these things shut down, and spinning them back up to not just hit your order, but to hit the orders of Kazakhstan and Nigeria and Paraguay is real hard.
The car shortage, because I think a lot of people early on were like, oh, it's because these crypto farms are stealing all of the graphics cards, and that's where the chips that it's not those levels of chips. It's the chips that the light switch in the
Yeah.
middle of the car, like it's the basic chip that's
Right. It's
missing.
like
Because
simple transistors, man.
right, there are shortages on those,
The
and
shortages
there
on
are
everything,
reasons
man.
on everything, but the reason there's a car shortage, the reason that these are all an issue, is because the basic chips that are like on impact activated light up toys or your light bulb switch in a car are what's missing, and you still need those to open the windows. so so that's it, right? There's shortages on every part of the production line. That then adds, obviously cost increases, material cost is up for
Man,
a library
it
of
just
different
occurred
reasons.
to me that you must have been dealing with some crazy nonsense to like, even something as simple as a plain hoop has so many random parts involved in, like, just getting plastic, getting manufactured, getting people at the factory to do the thing, and then having it shipped. Didn't you have, like, problem with, like, battle bosses getting shipped to America even?
Oh, so Battle Bosses, which is the game we came out with, there are 3 different factories that were involved with the process of making it. So there's the, because 'cause they're like little action figures that come with a board game inside. There's the
Yeah.
board game manufacturer, the printer. There's the, injection molding part that makes the little figures, and then there is the paint ops, because 'cause they're all fully painted, and then
Mhm.
there's also the company that makes the tooling for all of those companies. Every single one of them had a COVID outbreak
Oh, good gravy.
during
And
production.
tooling, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, it's like the process of actually making the metal die that presses out the shape of the thingy.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So when, most product, and there's a library of ways of doing this. For instance, hoops are made differently. Is you take giant, big pieces of metal that have carved into them the shape you want, and then you smush them against each other, applying tons of pressure, and then you inject extremely hot liquid plastic, and then it cools down in it, and then it opens up, and then it drops out the formed plastic thing that you own.
Yes,
That's like how most stuff is made. Hoops are made using extrusion. So if you've ever like
like
made
pasta.
your own pasta, yeah, it's that process, or like Play-Doh as a kid.
Yes.
Um,
But anyways, we don't need to get
yes,
down that wire, even though I'm really, really
we do love
fascinated by
tape.
that
Yeah,
too.
I could talk about all of that forever.
Oh
But
my god, dude, you have no idea how much I love just listening to this because listening to how things are made is one of my favorite things to do. So, but let's drill down a bit here. So,
so then the last bit is shipping. That's
mm,
the last piece of that's like, and this is all going to be relevant to the Wizards of the Coast conversation. So right now, two things are happening in shipping. It's
mm,
timing and logistics as well as cost.
mm,
So as far as cost goes, this was an easy one to explain. A container, which is when you ship something from China, it puts it in a big metal box. It sits on a boat. That boat gets shipped across the ocean, and it lands in normally Long Beach or Los Angeles Port, which are literally next to
or
each other,
Oakland.
or Oakland. Yeah, there's a bunch of ports around the country, but and they are
Yeah.
all being used now. But the majority of product used to come from Long Beach, and it would go on a train or a truck and go wherever the warehouse is. Those
Yes.
containers used to cost $5,000,
Mm,
and that's for a 20 or 40 foot container. It fits, for instance, for hoops, it fits 17,000 hoops.
good
Uh,
gravy.
uh, it now costs $30,000.
Jesus Christ.
So that's fun. And
How
on
does that
top,
not put you out of business?
well, Kess is lucky because we make the majority of our product in the US. So we make all of our hoops here.
Mm,
All of the hoops that we make are made in the United
Well,
States.
that's
The
handy.
puzzles are made here. There are other things that we make. Our largest customers, though, buy it themselves, so they're eating the cost of that
Mm,
container,
that's
and
fair.
the smaller customers that we work with, we bring it in domestically and we're dealing. I mean, it is a challenge, right? That's and that kind of comes to the Hasbro conversation. The other piece is timing. So
Mm,
before 2020, if I were to ship something from China, it would
mm,
take about 3 days to get on a boat. It would take then 10 days to be on the water. It would then land in, normally, as I said, Long Beach,
mhm,
and it would take 3 days to a week, depending on how, whatever paperwork and whatever, and how busy that season was. And then either get on a truck or a train and then end up in Ohio. And it would take about a total of a month. That was kind of
mm,
the easy estimate, was unless something terrible happens, a month time to leave China and get to your warehouse.
mhm.
That's also true of India. I think India is like 10 days extra, which is the other place that we do
Sure.
manufacturing outside of the US. And But for both of those, it is now, it takes 10 days in wherever you are to find a container. So there's a container shortage amongst all of this happening, because there's just not enough containers that exist to be able to deal with the amount of product that people are now buying. Because that's
Yeah,
also,
because I mean, everybody's locked down, everybody's at home, you have to order things.
right, right. Oh, no. Oh, the part of this is being caused by, and that's like the weird thing, right? Is like Hasbro is having massive sales. They're just not
Right.
making money on the sales, and that's where this whole investor is coming in, because the toy industry is up. Like we our last year was profit, not profitability, it was like dollar wise was a great year for Cass. We did really, really well, and we sold more hoops than we've ever sold before, and in the history of both companies.
Jesus.
uh,
Well, I mean, because like, the logistics of it, right? Like, I mean, think about it. Everybody is locked at home. They have nothing to do. Having toys so the kids can play in the backyard or the park or somewhere, something to do
oh,
is like a life-saving device.
explicitly in toys, kids were stuck at home for 2 years.
Mhm.
And when you're a parent, you can talk to this more than I can. If you can get something to entertain your child while you're stuck at home with
Anything.
them for 24 hours, you will do anything for them.
Yes. And, like,
Um,
and when I was, like, I remember I was talking to, Aaron Forsyth, the Wizards, because I was like, "How can you tell me that, like, Ikoria and Core 21 or whatever, or, like, the best-selling sets of all time?" He's like, "Look, everybody's stuck at home with whoever they're stuck with. If they play Magic, they're buying crates so that they can sit and, like." I know I did. I bought boxes and
mhm.
boxes of Jumpstart so that me and my wife would have something to do, right? And,
Well,
it turns out, like,
there's a
people
lot
like
of
drafting.
yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of costs that people left out on, right? Like people didn't go on vacation.
Yeah.
People were spending less money on gas
And
by
food
the
and
boatload.
transit and
They were
gas, yeah.
eating at home. Or if they're getting delivery, they're not going to like nice restaurants. They're getting something that's inexpensive. There's so many micro expenses that people were saving during this period, that you just, the thing you need to spend it on, which is, my kid is bored. How do I fix this? Because he can't have friends over. He's not going to school. What do I do?
That's why I
And
keep saying that things like spell tables saved my life just from having, like, the ability to talk to other humans. Things like this
um,
podcast. But yeah, like,
so
that
so
so there we are.
so products are selling so much they are. And then logistics happens, right? There are not already, before this happened, there was a trucker shortage in the United States. Like,
Mm.
they're just like, the job and lifestyle of being a trucker is not
Oh, yeah, it's a huge
great.
problem. There's
And
exploitation, immigrants are getting wrecked by
yeah,
it. It's
there's like
ridiculous.
really bad. And then on top of that, like, the ports also don't have enough staff, or don't have the ability to get through this, and weren't prepared for this moment. So now, that month before, once the container gets to the United States, now it takes about 20 days versus 10 days. It can sit in Long Beach. I have had a container that landed in August, and we got it in December out of the port. And that's not even to Ohio. That's not like, it still had to travel by truck across the country. It didn't leave for 4 months.
Jeez.
And mitigating, and I've had other ones that taken 2 months, like, or 1 month, right? It's, which ones get caught is totally up to the power of God.
Right?
And so mitigating that is extremely difficult. We've, some stuff we air freighted, so there are component parts that we've been able to air freight, which is just like 50 times more expensive than this, and this is already
Mhm.
expensive. um these are challenges that I'm facing, and I'm doing a lot of my business here,
Mm.
and that's what's affecting Hasbro.
Right.
That's why they have had record sales, but their profitability is at 5% versus what it should be. And they're under worse pressure where they have a
Because they're
significant
a
amount of their
billion-dollar publicly owned company.
well, yes, yeah. Well, but they have significant amount of licenses, right?
Yes,
On
yes.
ballpark, when you have a licensing deal with a company, it'll average around 10% of
Hmm.
what you make on that product gets taken out. And that's from what you sell it to the retailer as, not what the retailer sells it at. They get the market up normally. They're normally tighter because you have to make sure the product isn't like $30 for a Pikachu puzzle when it's $20
Mhm.
for a not Pikachu puzzle, right? Like people eventually are like, that's way more expensive and not worth it for Star Wars. But
Mm.
and then depending on the brand, that changes. Like Disney brands are closer to the 25% world, and smaller brands can be closer to the 5% or 2% world. Like it ranges, but Hasbro was up until very recently one of the major licensors of
Yes.
Disney products. That's one of the things that also has gone wrong for them recently, is that Mattel was able to get the dolls back.
Oof.
So Hasbro had the Disney princesses for dolls, and Mattel was able to bring it back into Mattel. Now,
It's so weird that there's only 2 companies, right? Like
well,
Mattel and Hasbro.
so interesting enough, Jack Specific is the third. That's like where I was at. They're the third. I think they are the largest Disney licensor, or not the largest from dollar perspective, but the percentage of their business that is a license is the highest.
Mm.
Uh, when we were there, we did, if you remember the giant like life-sized stormtroopers from like 2015,
Yes.
that was us. And we were the main licensor of Frozen for the Frozen run, and literally saved
Oh,
Jax. To
yeah, I
like it,
believe
like
it.
Jax was not do like its stock went from 20 a share to $4 a share, and then Frozen came out.
GG's,
uh,
buddy. I mean, look, dude, sometimes you hit. Right now, I'm sure Encanto stuff is probably flying off the shelves.
they're the licensor holder for all Nintendo products, so they do
Oh,
all
well,
of the
there you
like
go.
Mario stuff, not Pokemon, but the Mario,
Mario is an
Zelda,
evergreen brand, man.
right.
It's like
He's more recognizable than Mickey Mouse, right? Like Mario is the most recognizable character on the planet. I think like Pikachu is now in running, and that's the
and
same
Nintendo is
company.
probably sitting there going like, "Yeah, we are
Great,
very
either one.
happy to just be Mario and Pikachu Town."
But so there are other companies that do it, but to kind of the point, those licenses bounce back and forth, right?
Yes.
If all that happened last year was Hasbro lost the doll light brand to Mattel, and Wizards of the Coast did really well, that wouldn't be where this conversation that they think Wizards
Mm.
can spin off from. But the other part of it is that Wizard of the Coast's model isn't really congruent with the toy model.
Hmm. How do you mean?
For, First off, demographic, like who Wizard of the Coast is selling to. Yes, there's the argument that there's a portion of their audience
Yeah,
that's like 13 to
I think
18.
I think that myth needs to die because, like, when we talk about the average median age of people who play WotC games like D&D and Magic, we're not talking about 13-year-olds. We're talking about like 20 to 30 to 40-year-olds,
Right. And
right? Like
yeah, no,
people with disposable
absolutely.
incomes. These are not cheap games. The middle schoolers aren't playing Magic. Sorry.
They are right. Like it's not a non-zero argument. And like for instance, a lot of the probably packs sold at like a Walmart and a Target, a lot of them, at least before the Pokemon craze that happened last year,
Mm,
were to kids, right? Like they're
sure.
mass retail friendly things. But for the most part, you're correct, right? The majority of their business and the majority of dollars being spent on Magic is from adults, which is not what Hasbro's model is.
Right.
Two, Wizards of the Coast's main distribution channels are not Walmart and Target.
There.
There's local game stores, there's
Right.
online websites, there's stuff like Channel Fireball, right? Like Walmart, and to the
Mhm.
extent that the location that packs are in at Walmart and Target is not actually a Walmart and Target store. So I
What do
don't
you
know if
mean?
everyone. I always forget. I don't want to say the name, but basically the person
Oh,
who
yeah.
sells Magic product at Walmart and Target.
Right, there's a distributor who basically leases shelf space from these
Correct.
stores,
The
right?
entire trading card aisle. So baseball cards, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Magic the Gathering, and a few other
It's not Alliance,
collectibles.
but it's one of the other distributors.
I think it is XL Marketing, but they
Yeah,
might be the impulse people, and that's where I might. There's two companies that I deal with
right.
as myself that I am that do two different sections. One does the like cheap impulse section at Target and Walmart, that's like the $2 and below stuff,
Mhm,
and then one does the trading card aisle, and I always forget which one is which because I don't
mhm.
sell to either of them. I just compete
Hmm.
with one of them. The Wizards aisle is PAX, right? So they don't deal with the Walmart buying team really, or the Target buying team. They deal with this group that
The
buys
third
it.
party.
On D&D they do, right? D&D does sell into the game aisle at Target. They do sell the books into Target through that area, but otherwise Magic product is not sold through classic channels that Hasbro on the other hand does call
Right.
on. Like Hasbro is category manager in entire aisles at Target and
Right.
Walmart where they
Like
have
Hasbro has like, offices in Bentonville that deals directly with Walmart. They have their own, specific like handlers. They have like
in
direct lines in where
Minneapolis, correct.
yeah,
Like
exactly. I mean, I used to work at Voodoo, and that company was owned by Walmart, so I learned a lot about the distribution channels within like the Walmart ecosystem, being the largest retailer in the world,
right.
and that means that a lot of people will come to you. But because Wizards was dealing with small fry items like individual packs, that is not something a Walmart buyer cares about. Like, however, the dude who's leasing that aisle is the smaller company that Wizards is going to deal with to sell things like your packs, your precons, or the people who repackage those things in the little
That's
transparent
them. Yeah,
glass
yeah.
plastic boxes.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's the risk capital, right? Like because part of the problem with that aisle and the reason that with Walmart and Target moved away from it is it's very knowledge
pickpocket
based.
friendly.
You have to be very very knowledgeable how the space runs, and buyer
Right,
teams interchange, right? Like
right.
the a buyer that buys a specific category will move from department to department
Yep,
regularly.
yep.
And with Magic and trading cards, especially outside of Magic, you have to be very specifically knowledgeable on the
Hmm.
subjects, as your audience knows.
Yeah,
And on top of that, um, the cycle of how it's released and product is released is different than regular retail. Like normally, retailers reset twice a year, right? There's a fall
mm,
set and a spring set. There's like some sections that are a little bit more seasonal that are normally like there's 3 aisles in the back of Target that's their seasonal section that when it
sure.
becomes right before Easter, that's where all the Easter baskets are. Right before Valentine's Day, that's where all the Valentine stuff is. Right before summer, it's where they put the pool stuff because and
Right,
then et cetera, et cetera. But the rest of the stuff only resets twice a year, fall and fall, like
sure.
January and August. Magic packs don't do that. There's a new Magic product every month now. And when it doesn't sell or it becomes stale, now Walmart isn't going to Hasbro with giant markdowns every month. It's this Excel market or whatever this company is rejiggering the product on a
Yeah,
monthly basis. And that's where those repacks come from. And they'll sit on shelves for, whatever, 6 months. So they're
that's why you can still go to like a Target right now and still get packs of Midnight Hunter, M21 or whatever it is, because like some of these things just get stale and they don't get refreshed because the store doesn't care. That's somebody else's problem.
right. And so their distribution model doesn't match what Hasbro's does, right? Their audience isn't Hasbro's audience. Their manufacturing is different because
They
they're
own printers.
well, yeah, the printers are theirs. They make a lot of them domestically. That's one of the reasons Wizards was able to be as profitable as they were. They're not dealing with that container problem I described. They are a little bit. Some of their products are, but like their bulk of their product, the key pieces of it can be made domestically, and especially the stuff that's like high priority in cycle orders that they
Mhm.
build in a regular bulk buy that they know what they're buying every season, which is every standard set. Those are pretty easy to mitigate.
And this is why
Um,
we get messages periodically saying like, "Oh, this secret layer is gonna be delayed because it's being printed off cycle in China, not at our current home printers, so we have to wait for the container ship to bring
and,
it here or
and I,
whatever."
yeah, and I don't know where secret layers are printed, but those are also a different
Well, but I
model.
mean, but
They're
it
printed
it
on demand.
what China or not, it's still just like they've got products that are like, these are not our primary, like, when you look at it, it's like, "Oh, the collector boosters for Japan will be late this year because they're being printed not at our normal place."
Right,
Right?
right, right.
Yeah.
And that's why like some of the supplemental sets like Unfinity is being
No,
delayed because it like
Unfinity, yeah.
yeah, was likely not printed in the US. And is dealing the problem that everyone's dealing with. But so their distribution model is different, their manufacturing model is different, their audience is different, their marketing because of the audience being different is a different team entirely. They focus on stuff like the game shows and all that stuff, right? And so from a investor perspective, Wizards of the Coast doesn't like the things they rely on, and some of this, this is all stuff that's in house that we don't know confirmation, but my assumption is that most of their finance team is Hasbro's. They
Yes.
probably have in-house accountants because you just need that to do $1 billion
Sure.
worth of business you can keep track of that specialize in their business, but the majority of it is probably done out house. A portion of their sales team is probably out of Hasbro because yes, Walmart and the distributors and all of that stuff has specialty focused salespeople, but like My guess is that Bart's
Look,
will buy
look,
or beat up Hasbro.
a lot of the broader functions of the company are run out of Rhode Island, out of Hasbro proper. Like, a lot of
The
the
stuff that
HR
would be
stuff, a lot of the
redundant.
accounting, sales. Like, yes, Wizards has its own specific marketing teams and PR teams. It's got very specific, and like per region, Team France, US, Germany, and Japan. But it's also got like the sales teams and stuff are very much you're exactly right. Like Wizards has a different target than like your average Hasbro. The people who are buying GI Joe toys are not necessarily people who are worrying too much about the latest Fizzband's Guide to Dragons
Right,
or
yeah,
whatever it is, right?
it's your parents and kids are buying one type of, and not even just who's buying it, but the way they buy it and the way
Right.
companies buy product to sell to them is different than what Hasbro is doing. So that's kind of setting the stage on what's going on, right? The toy
Yes.
industry has been going through a lot of strife over the last half decade. The um
Join the club, but
yes, yeah. All many industries are going through problems.
my mom's a
The
travel agent. Let me tell you about strife.
Sure. The uh world of like why Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast makes sense together is debatable. And so this company, Alta Fox Capital then looks at it and is like, okay, so arguably, and this is without getting into their statements they made, because I do want to talk about why that is way more suspect to me than like on paper. But
Mhm.
they're a company, they're a division of a company that is making significantly higher profit, and the stock price isn't allowed to deal with that. I guess the one thing we didn't talk about before we go into that is toys is a weird market anyways. It's not a growth market,
Mm.
right? There's a pretty much standard set number of children in the United States. It grew for the last 2 years because of the whole issue with COVID and people buying more toys for their kids. There's also a level of like uh millennials are having kids for the first time because they finally can afford anything at
Right?
once they've hit their like late 30s.
Look,
uh,
man, life is hard, okay?
oh no, I am, as a person who is having his first kid in the next 2 months, I am 34. My parents had me when they were 29 and they were late for their age
Dude, like,
group.
my mom had me when she was 25, and I'm like, when I was
Right.
25, I was like a wastrel in Japan. I don't know what I was.
My
Anyways,
mom as a
anyways,
grandma is older now. My mom, who is not yet a grandma, is older now than her great grandma was when I was born.
that's time
uh,
is weird.
so the like that is happening. So there is some growth happening in toys, but for the most part, it's a pretty stagnant market, and Hasbro is a pretty stagnant company. So even if it was doing fine, its stock is not going to swing with its successes very heavily. It's pretty much like, how much better can the largest toy company in the world really be? On the other hand, Wizards of the Coast isn't a toy company. They're a trading card, branding, D&D book producing machine company, right? Like they're not making toys, and the growth there is way more massive. Because even now, there are tons of people I know that don't play Magic that would maybe like Magic. Not
Mm,
to mention, there's tons of people I know that definitely would like D&D that definitely don't play D&D. There's
mm.
tons of people that play Magic that could spend more money on Magic. And as they get older, they will spend more money on Magic, right? There's the next, all of Zoomers who are all like graduating from playing Arena and are learning that paper Magic is just better, are finally able to go back to LGSs. Like Wizards had all this growth with the major arm of its sales structure not selling product. So there is potential there for it to grow, and its stock doesn't get to show it. A good example is that right now, Wizard of the Coast is doing more dollars in business than Spinmaster was when it IPO'd.
What's
And
Spin Master?
so Spin Master's the fourth largest toy company, and
Mm,
this all right now they have a market cap of about $2 billion, or they did about $2 billion in sales. I always mix those two up, but last year they did $2 billion worth of sales last year. They're the owners of
jeez.
Paw Patrol, so if you know Paw
Oh,
Patrol,
well, there you go then.
that's them.
If you're
They
a
also
dad and you don't know Paw Patrol, you aren't dad.
like Airhog as well. Like that was them.
Mm,
Byakugan was them. Like they started as a devil stick company. Actually, there's a really good podcast by interviewing one of the founders. They started as like making juggling product, like devil
Mhm.
sticks and like a chia seed knockoff product that eventually got them to the point where they made air hogs, which was their first big thing that like brought them over whatever dollar amount of company they were. Then they came out with Bakugan, and that was their second big thing.
Mhm.
And then
Anyways, yes. So,
yeah. So they eventually IPO'd. They IPO'd about 6 years ago, like right before I left Jack's.
mm,
And uh, they IPO'd at $1 billion. That's how much sales they were doing at the time. Wizards is doing $500 million more than them, and they are now worth two. You know, they're now worth significantly more than that. I can actually look it up. Let me get that a lot. Okay. Um, so Spin Master has a I'll start from the mag. So Spin Master has a $3.65 billion market cap. Right, they IPO'd at $1 billion 5 years ago. They had about $2 billion worth of sales last year, with like actually a similar amount of revenue as Hasbro. To give a frame of reference, their revenue was close to Hasbro's, and they're 2/5 of the size in total sales for the year.
jeez.
That's kind of the reason Hasbro stock didn't do well. Wizards of the Coast, on the other hand, is beating them by that percentage markup, right? So that's why they're looking at Wizards being like, oh, if we spin this off as a stock, we split Hasbro stock into two. Hasbro gets to keep all of its legacy. It keeps the fact that it's age. It's going to keep a lot of its market cap because other than Wizards, it's still a pretty stagnant, flat business that's successful and has its ups and downs, but is doing fine. And at worst case scenario, it drops down to Mattel's size, which is 11 billion market cap. And in the meantime, Wizards of the Coast has the potential to be the next Spin Master,
Hmm.
or outside of that, be the next Xbox, right? Like it's a gaming company, so it's closer to the like Activision, Blizzard,
Yeah, yeah.
EAs of the world. They're just making
Right,
paper goods versus digital goods than it is to Hasbro, and and it also allows Hasbro to take advantage of that stock growth because remember, Hasbro still will own the same percentage of Wizards of the Coast that they own now,
right.
other than like people that would start buying it from them, right? But so now where Hasbro Wizards of the Coast is adding some amount of revenue to their stock price, but if the stock value goes up, like if they do it and they were worth, the market cap for Spin Master was $1 billion when they IPO'd. It's now worth $4.4 billion,
Sure.
about right, 4.6
God,
CAD.
these
I'm
numbers are
looking at
just
they're
absurd.
from Canada, so all of their numbers are in Canadian, and I'm not going to do the math as we go. Like Wizards, if Wizard did that, that's adding $2.5 billion worth of market cap to Hasbro's balance sheet. So that's like the argument for it, right? That's why they're like, you should do this. Then you get into the damn letter that they released today. It's been long. We've previewed this from the beginning of this podcast.
Good gravy. Like,
um,
look, we're 55 minutes in, so this is gonna be a long haul one, or it's gonna be a real short one, but I think it's probably gonna be a long haul because this is fascinating. Just learning about the business of, like, toys, which is ancillarily related to, I mean, it's not even ancillary, it's directly related to Wizards and what we do and what we're into. This is fascinating, and if these, capitalists, if these, investors have enough clout to be able to get their people on the board, weird things are going to happen. So this is important for all of us who spend a lot of money on Magic to know.
and this is a relatively regular transaction, right? You said at the beginning, like
Yeah,
earlier this year, AT&T, like 2 years ago, AT&T bought Warner Brothers. Earlier this year, they spun them off into the Discovery Company, and now they're a separate company again, Warner Brothers
yeah,
Studios, right? Like that, this
it
happens.
happens a lot.
Um,
It just this time it matters to us.
yeah, this time we care. And if I were to like bet money on it, I would probably bet money more on the fact that this probably doesn't happen.
Oh yeah.
B, if it does happen, I don't think a lot of the I think a lot of what was said in the letter today from the company that's behind it and trying to motivate people and prove to them that this is the thing that should happen is like pointing at every single exploitable way Wizards can make more money.
Yeah, that would, so let's go into that before we start talking around it. But the thing is though, remember investors are by and large a very conservative like group, and they don't like things that are big change, especially if you go and say, "Hey, the thing that's making the most money in your company, let's spin it off." That's not a sound that a lot of people like to hear. But so tell me about this letter.
So yeah, so basically, it's kind of like a mission statement, and there's
Yes.
vibes of it of like players save wizards. We're gonna take them out of
Yeah,
Hasbro and
it
spin them
felt a
off on
little
their
cheeky to
own.
me. It felt a little unprofessional to me.
Yeah, it was yeah, which is like part of this is it like
They're trying to give the homespun vibe to it.
well, there is a momentum thing with these types of projects, right? Like by
Yeah.
being an angel investor, the way they succeed there is getting the other investors to believe that the audience for Wizards wants this, and that other
Yes.
investors, which like I own some Hasbro stock, right? Like I I was like, oh, I should own this. I'm buying enough Magic cards. I should own the part where they're making money off of me.
That's actually
um,
a good idea. I
but yeah,
should
everyone should
definitely.
everyone should have for sure bought Hasbro stock. Now I don't know what the timing is, and I'm not here to give financial advice, but I did buy it a while ago.
Okay, anyways,
uh, so um, where was I? What was I saying before you derailed
you
ourselves?
were talking about angel
Oh, the letter.
investors and
So it does have like a vibe of. I think part of it is like it's kind of like a Kickstarter in some ways, where you're just trying to convince the community and stockholders that this will be a good idea, and also like build goodwill behind it to make it
yes.
happen. Because if the whole world was like, "This is terrible, we shouldn't do this," then it makes it much less likely to happen than if everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Wizards of the Coast could be on its own." Like, and I will say on that end, I am a big proponent of giant corporations becoming smaller corporations.
Sure.
Right? Like the consolidation of companies is bad for everyone. And so
Yes.
like there's a lot of people online right now being like, oh, remember hedge fund managers are evil, and just because hedge fund managers are leaving Hasbro isn't better. And it's like
Yes.
hedge fund managers are a neutral party until proven otherwise, with classic problems about being greedy. But right now, Hasbro has consolidated the market under itself in a way that is probably problematic from any way you want to look at it. And them being each of their divisions being smaller pieces is better for the collective good of every industry that's attached to them,
Sure.
including the workers that work for them and the factories they work with and other competition and blah 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 blah. So there is that. The other part of it is that they kind of point out a lot of different things that could be exploited by Wizards that's not being exploited. One thing they point out is that Wizards of the Coast hasn't had a cost increase in their core product, that of draft boosters. They've done it twice in the last 30 years, right? Over that entire period of time, which is like big red flags.
Yeah, that's exactly what we, the fan, want to hear. It's like, hey guys, those $4 booster packs are now going to be 15.
Right. There is a little bit of it that is true, in the sense that right now everything should cost a dollar more than it does. From a like inflation perspective, from a like the cost of things perspective, there's this like, and that has less to do with consumers and more to do with like retail conversations.
Mm,
Um, which is like fine. Like I would rather my magic packs cost the same as they've always costed.
yes.
And there's other ways to go about kind of dealing with that. They also point out like, the thing that I didn't like about what's in the document, and you should have a link to it somewhere for people, because we don't have to read the whole thing here,
Yeah,
but
sure.
like other things they pointed out that like our call outs are, they brought up that they're like Wizards of the Coast's Hasbro's focus on entertainment companies was looked at as a net negative for as far as corporate decisions go, and those types of corporate decisions are what is hurting Wizards of the Coast.
That's like things like owning E1, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah, they bought a media company. Now, like, that's wrong, to be honest, right? Like,
Hmm.
and Spin Master's proof of the pudding, right? Like, Spin Master's investment into media companies is what has made it so successful. Them owning Paw Patrol has been a huge success for them.
Hmm.
Now, what Hasbro bought, different conversation. Like, was what they bought actually worth it? Though part of it was it came with The Walking Dead attached to it, and Walking Dead Secret Lair is considered a massive financial success. So,
It's like one of those things where none of us who are the true fans of Magic want to hear it, but that thing sold gangbusters.
right.
Like insane. It blew through the margins that they expected. It's one of the best-selling products they've ever had, which is wild because it's a dead line. Who knew? Who knew?
Well, I think that like they benefited from three features, right? They benefited from actual Magic players who just like didn't want to miss out, which is like the complaint people had with Secret Lair. They benefited from Magic players that just like liked the cards. Like, online Magic is not real life Magic.
Ain't that the
And
truth?
and so there's a ton of people that just like, oh, that's cool. I want those cards. Oh, I can just buy them. Great. And then the third part is they're just like Walking Dead fans.
Yeah. People
I
who
know
are
a
like,
lot of
"I'm
Magic
never
fans
gonna
are like,
open the thing, I just want it in my Walking Dead pile of Walking Dead things."
right, for and even Magic players that like Walking Dead. Like there's a ton of Magic players I know they're like, oh, this is the dopest thing I've ever seen. I
Sure.
don't want to post about it online because I don't want a bunch of people in my comments yelling at me, but this is
Well, they would
cool.
yell at me.
Yes, yeah. Gotta have Shivam Paladin for you. That's how you get to be on the internet. Uh, and so yeah, so there's just like this live like so they pointed out these like media deals as maybe a mistake, and it's like Cassie, who used to do finance articles for Star City Games, she posted earlier today that like, and I kind of agree with this. There were vibes of the article that had similar feelings to the like keep woke content out of Dungeons and Dragons vibes,
Mm.
which is like, you're not wrong. Like the like there's a little bit of like what Magic is becoming isn't what it should be, and like we should go back to its roots or whatever. And like
Yeah, of
how much
course, Johnny Finkel is gonna want Magic to go back to being storm decks all the time, like, come on. It felt a lot like, "Oh, look, the smartest kids in the room are sad that all the dumb kids have come sat at the table with us." It
yeah,
it's smarmy in the wrong way.
yeah, there were parts of the announcement that I was like, now I do honestly believe that this is just a like this is where the problem comes in, right? I think this is a good idea. I think Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro should absolutely do this. I think it benefits everyone involved. I think it's better for like Wizards employees because a lot of them, especially the ones that have been there for a while, have whatever stock share options that they get. But also, it adds employees. It gives them freedom in ways that they previously had to go through the budget of a company that had to get its budget approved by another company that was dealing with its own budget problems, right? Like so it gives them the freedom to be a company that they succeed, and they're making enough money to succeed on their own. $1.5 billion is a company with $500 million worth of profit is going to be fine on its own. They don't need the infrastructure of Hasbro anymore. I posted this whole content about this on TikTok, and I had one person
Mhm.
being like, no, they're never going to leave. They need the printing cloud of Hasbro to be able to print their product on
They
demand. And I
they
was like,
definitely do not.
they don't. I like it. I didn't respond in the end because I didn't know how to explain that. A, I know what I'm talking about because I literally print product for a living, and B, no, they don't. It's like one of the times like the like complaint someone has is so off the wall bonkers, off a direction that you're like, no, none of that makes sense, and I don't know where to start to disagree with you. But the like and from from that perspective, from a finance perspective, I think it's also a good idea. I think it's not a bad idea for Hasbro because Hasbro does get the benefit of the stock ownership with that, to mitigate some of the costs, the loss of revenue that they're getting from it. And there would be a moment where they could sell some of this stock off and make a lot of money really quickly, letting Wizards be its own thing. Losing some of the power in ownership of it, but that they'd still own a pretty high percentage of it that they can't do now, right? Hasbro can't sell Wizards of the Coast stock to get cash.
Mm.
They could in that environment. They now have an asset that's liquid or more liquid than what they currently have. And that allows them to invest in brands and other things that they want to do. Both companies also get to hire a bunch more people, right now, what we said earlier, HR, finance, accounting, legal, patent attorney, all that would have to be now a new company for Wizards or new employees for Wizards. So that's X amount of people getting new jobs. The one thing that I think is like maybe interesting is I do think Wizards of the Coast's distribution is through Hasbro. And when I say that, I mean not like how they sell product to retailers, but how they store product before they get sold to retailers.
Mm.
And that's the piece that Wizards would have to invest pretty significantly to be able to fix.
Yeah, 'cause it
But
turns out having billions of cards out there takes up a lot of space.
oh yeah, I mean divide, that's easy math, right? Just if all of that $1 billion was packs, which like, and those are the smallest version of product, the easiest to store. Moving
Like,
my
think about it,
calculator
if
sideways because billion doesn't fit on that version of a phone. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't 500 billion. That's an insane number. 12 billion divided by average cost of pack is $4,
Mhm, give or
right?
take, sure.
Give or take, sure. For 3, I did divide or multiply. So we're gonna cut all this out. Hopefully, me doing math, which is not six. Oh
Good
no, I did
radio.
that wrong. One, two, one, two, three, four, five. That's million. One, two, three, divided by four. There we go. Oh yeah, 300 million packs a year, which is a lot of warehouse space.
Yeah.
So now what I think they do, and the other reason I think this is beneficial to Hasbro is I think that they just pay Hasbro to do it for them.
Mm. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna realistically spin off a company and the parent is still gonna own some chunk of it, it would be in everybody's interest for them to sit there and actually just have, like, beneficial, profit sharing, not profit sharing, but, like, agreements in order to keep the functioning business
Yeah.
functioning.
Well, that's
Like
the other point, right? Like if Wizards of the Coast is a public trading company that then releases a portion of its profits as dividends, which Hasbro does, right? Like if you own Hasbro stock, you're getting dividends. They're that type of company. And for those who don't know,
mm,
dividends are at the end of the year. If a company is relatively matured, they will give a percentage. Every person who owns a stock will get a percentage of the earnings that they release. So if they have $500 million of profit, everyone who owns stock in Hasbro gets a whatever amount of stock they have of the company and percentage of that profit sent to them in a check. Disney stock does this every year. The older the company, the more likely they are to do that because they don't
mhm.
as often invest back into the company with that dollars.
Yep.
Um, so if Wizards of the Coast does that, that portion goes a large, like 200 million of that 500 million, maybe just goes right back to Hasbro, right? And on top of that, if I'm Wizards of the Coast, I don't want to open up new distribution centers. I don't want to have to redesign from the ground up my distribution strategy. I'll just pay Hasbro a 2%, 5%, whatever fee
Yes.
on shipping product to their warehouses. I mean, it's kind of like how Pokemon Company works, right? That's
Right.
another similar thing where Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and Nintendo each own a percentage of Pokemon, and each one is like Game Freak makes all the games, Pokemon Company manages the brand and all of the content around it and the card game, and Wizard of the Coast or Nintendo just is a shareholder of both of them as distribution rights to the games, et cetera, and gets dollars from
Yes.
all of this, and they all
Yes.
share the profit from that, and that would be very similar to what this relationship would be like. So, like, is it a lot of work? Yes. Does it financially make sense to do this? Absolutely. Is it a little scary that the people behind it are pushing the narrative on why it should happen in ways that is worrisome? Yes.
Yes.
Is it also a little weird because Chris Cox, the previous CEO of Wizards of the Coast, is now the CEO of Hasbro because of the success of Wizards of the Coast? They wanted to apply towards the greater Hasbro
Right? Like,
brand.
that's the part that gets me is like, "Hey, guys, if Wizards is doing so bad and if Hasbro is doing so bad, maybe would they not have" like, bringing the head of Wizards to run the company the way he ran the profit-making division seems like the smartest business decision Hasbro has made. Like, that seems like a genius idea. Why would you not do the guy who's got the golden touch and bring him to make Transformers work?
And the argument there, right, is we are now taking a talented individual who could be running this company as its own thing and continuing its success and continuing it to grow and bringing it into this much more aged business where he's going to have a lot more trouble trying to get stuff that isn't working to work with a lot higher challenges that we described. Why waste that
Yes.
talent there when we can put him back at Wizards, spin Wizards off as his own company, and he can work that magic to not grow Wizards from 700 million to 1.5 billion or 1.2 billion, but grow it to 2 billion and 3 billion and and possibly overcome these other companies as the largest game manufacturer of all time, right? So
Sure.
it's messy. It's cool. It's like really fascinating. It's this weird moment where like my expertise in the toy business and my expertise in Magic the Gathering ness has like coincided to
I
uh
mean, you know what you're talking about.
it's weird.
It it is weird because I'll be honest with you, about an hour and a half ago, you were just my friend the clown shoes on Twitter.
Whoa, whoa,
Not even
whoa.
Twitter,
I
just
am
real
a
life.
well adjusted, regarded Twitter personality that everyone should follow. Just get
No,
ready
I
for
dearly,
typos.
dearly respect you, and I love that we're good friends now. But the thing is, though, this is such a weird and interesting kind of position to be in because I think I think we're getting down to this is the right idea from um the wrong start point. And like their end goal is maybe not going to be what we want. Like I think Wizards has made significant strides in being a better, more open company, a more diverse company, a more welcoming company, because that's how you grow audiences, by getting new people to play and not by saying all y'all woke asses need to leave, right? Like that's not how it works. You need to grow your market share, and doing things like having D&D live streams or having like, magic content made by folks in Brazil or whatever. That's genius. That's how you grow new markets.
Yeah.
So, I think Wizards has been making significant strides, and like their game design focus. Yeah, no, it doesn't fit what Johnny Spike wants, but you can't say that it's not working. Every card is selling. Even the bad sets are selling out.
Right.
I mean,
And like the there is a true statement that like their audience is much wider than Hasbro's is.
significantly, right?
Right? Like there's way more people that can play Magic the Gathering than can buy toys. As
Mm.
I wish there was as many people that could buy toys as buy Magic the Gathering. I'd be selling a lot more hula hoops. But the idea that there is a like the brand itself like could be reaching much larger audiences with its product line is true. I mean, I can the front page is pretty short. So this is from freethewizards.com, which is the investment group's webpage that's meant to kind of herald this idea. And it's, we believe Hasbro Incorporated, Hasbro or the company is severely undervalued due to its ineffective brand blueprint strategy, flawed corporate structure, and a consistent misallocation of capital. Altafox Capital Management LLC, Altafox or we, has nominated a slate of 5 highly qualified and independent candidates to the board of directors to improve alignment, restore accountability, bring fresh ideas, and ultimately reverse Hasbro's chronic underperformance. Altafox sees a 3-year path to a $200 a share, more than 100% higher from current levels, with a refreshed board, new strategy, improved capital allocation, and a tax-free spinoff of Wizards of the Coast. So their plan is to spin Wizards of the Coast off in a tax-free way, which that means that's what the split is. And
Mm.
through that process, get Hasbro's stock price up to $200. It's currently at 100. I hit 100 this morning. Um, and I don't think they're wrong.
Do you think that investors would actually go and be like, "Hey, you spun off your most profitable division. We're going to invest more money in you"?
Well, you don't they all doubled their stocks.
I
They
guess
got
that's
two
true.
stocks and one of them spikes. Like if Wizard spins off, Wizards of the Coast's stock price goes up. Hasbro's probably goes down, but from a percentage, as we said, like even if you compare it to other toy companies of a similar size, depending on how many shares they release, Wizards stock could go up to, so theoretically would split and become, each one would be worth $50 at the gate, right? And so
Mm.
all you want when you do that is to make sure that Wizard stock then goes up by a higher amount than Hasbro stock goes down.
Hmm.
And if it's exactly proportional, yes, that was a mistake. But the argument they're making is that it won't be. The argument they're making is not only when you do that will has Wizards of the Coast stock go up, but because of this restructure that they're forcing all over Hasbro, Hasbro will also go up.
Jeez.
And which is not wrong. They're still like their stock price at $99, whatever the market cap is significantly larger than Mattel. And even if they were just like a little less significantly larger than Mattel, they're still doing well.
Mm. Mm.
And it's not like they're losing money without Wizards, right? They're still making, it's a small profit margin, and a lot of that is being caused by current issues that are happening in the market, and maybe possibly spending issues that they have that we don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I've been going back and forth on it all day because in some ways I'm into it. Matthew Culkin is the guy with the who's running the Alta Fox. Sorry, I just
Mhm.
ADD'd into something. But Matthew Culkin's the person who specializes in like finding micro categories that aren't being capitalized as much as they should, and then
Mm.
investing them in a way that makes them grow. And then the other people on the board this thing are Marcelo Fisher, John Finkel, Randy Hublow, and Carolyn Johnson. Um, which is, I'm looking at other stuff on this thing. There's one thing I also wanted to talk about. That's the thing. Oh, it's the player page. And this is the thing that's like annoying, right? This is the part we don't like.
Yes.
So the players page says Altafox's commitment to our investment in Hasbro is unique in more ways than one. We are also players of Magic the Gathering, have participated in recent arena opens, and are accurately aware of customers' collective frustrations with Wizards under Hasbro's current model. First off, like kind of name dropping arena opens is a like
Yeah, I'm like, really? I don't think your average investor gives a crap about arena opens.
Yeah. Below here are a few examples of what we view as long list of customer grievances. There's the famous $1 million worth of prize pool that went away for the pro play circuit. There's the lack of reinvestment in arena. There's a big kind of thing. I think they went to the Seth Manfield like breakdown that
Yeah.
he did a few months ago. There's the alchemy's negative impact on historic, in the big picture of prof saying the problem with
Mhm.
alchemy as a simple solution. And Altifox is focused on driving sustainable long-term shareholder value. In our view, this can only be accomplished through listening to players and reinvesting where it matters. We firmly believe that Wizards' relationship with its customers will significantly improve over time with a refreshed board that includes the player perspective and committed to holding management accountable to more KPIs than just the bottom line. To help bridge this disconnect between the players and Wizards, we could think of no better honorary Wizard to join our slate than John Finkel, one of the greatest to ever play the game of Magic the Gathering.
Who is also by himself a hedge fund manager.
Yeah. He's doing this
So
not
he
because
knows
they
the
found
business.
random good Magic player. He's a successful person in this space.
Yes.
My assumption is that John Finkel noticed that this was a possibility and went to and met with
Oh,
that
I
guy, and they
100%
like
think
had
so.
that conversation.
I 100% think he knows what he's talking about. He's investing and he's got an idea, but he's also, I hesitate to say he's out of touch because he's a brilliant guy. He knows a lot.
Mhm.
He's really good at finance. He's really good at understanding this, and obviously very good at magic. But I think him and that generation of players have misunderstood who the player base of Magic is these days, and they're aiming for this 1% of pro players who are grumpy and, like, trying to make their money on the train, and missing the fact that the broad base of, like, casual Commander players is, like, you know, everybody and not just this one tiny echelon of hyper invested pros.
Sure. Though I would point out like the fact that arena is only 25% of the market when we all thought it was more is a pretty significant sign that that could be better. And I don't think anyone on the
Yeah,
planet would
but I mean,
argue that
like,
arena can't be fixed.
yeah, sure, nobody's gonna say that. Come on, arena is
Well, so
there as convenience, right? Like,
so their main lists of things that they would fix because they don't talk about getting rid of products that they're doing or the way things are being designed, right? Like and I do know for a fact that right now at Wizards the design team has not grown very much, and to the argument, it hasn't grown at all since. But with how they've expanded massively the amount of product they're coming out with, right? Over the
hmm,
last 4 years, the amount of designers added to the team is not kept up with the amount of product they're making.
no, it has not.
And at the same time, I know that like every big corporation with a smaller corporation, people aren't like the designers aren't like getting paid in full for how much profit they've been able to bring the division, right? Like it's not like Wizards is then also investing into them because Hasbro needs those dollars to be able to fund their entire corporation and pay their dividends, etc. And and their list of things to fix are reinvest significantly into Arena and listen to customers. Launch multiplayer functionality on Arena, reduce bugs, launch subscription offerings that are more cost effective for consumers to improve the experience, improve transparency and offer a credible solution to the historic issue posed by alchemy. That one's a little old timey, whatever, but fine. Improve social functionality, offering chat, streaming, events, and other community oriented services through Arena. Further integrate paper and digital magic, i.e., notifications of physical events happening near you based on geolocation. Revival of competitive magic through a carefully designed yet simple in person and online tournament structure. A one stop shop digital subscription and pay as you go offering for a true to physical Dungeons and Dragons D&D experience. A lot of these things are real things that I would like to be better. Not
Sure, but at the same time, like, Wizards hired Huey. You don't hire somebody, put him at a director level to fix pro play, not to do that.
Oh, I'm
And
not
so,
pointing at that actually. So yes, pro play is like a low hanging fruit that I think is an unfair thing to speak about because it was canceled because of COVID.
yes.
Yes, I agree with you that there are things in here that are like, but offering a subscription version of Arena, dealing with the fact that there's no multiplayer functionality in the app, adding IPI so you can do viewership experiences with Arena. These are
Yeah,
things that
like, not
built
having,
in.
like, the ability for basic functionality, like, a viewer level of that for, tournaments to show off, or, like, having I mean, the fact that look, real talk, Commander is the most profitable thing that Wizards does right now, and that's generally driven by paper cards because of the fact that we can use every card that's ever been printed, right? And their incentive is to make more and more powerful cards like Arcane Signet, etc., in order to keep people buying new stuff instead of just delving through the old boxes. We all understand this. If they can find a way to put Commander on Arena, they will have a profit generating engine, right?
No, and they do already, right? The problem is just it's like not being focused. It's being squeezed in a way that is making it less and less popular, which I think they also
Yeah,
noticed, right? Like
right.
Arena is not as successful as it was now as it was a year ago,
Sure.
and are there are things here that are definitely worrying, right? Like there, and it depends on what they do, and everything can go terribly wrong. This could be the thing that kills Magic. Like literally, that's a possibility out of this experience. But on the other hand, they're pointing things that would benefit Magic. That some of these things are pretty directly linked to Hasbro not investing back into the company that's making the money,
Sure.
and on the other hand, I do think it's better. Like, I think it's better for a lot of employees at Wizards if they don't work at Hasbro anymore. They work at Wizards now.
Hmm.
And what does that look like? I don't know. You know, we've kind of described a little bit of it. It is an interesting problem. And the argument like, oh, but all hedge fund managers are evil, like any decision they would make is for greed only. Like that is
Sure.
true from a perspective. Like this is being made as an argument because the people getting involved think they can make a ton of money.
Right. Obviously, nobody's doing this for the generosity of the player, right? Like we got to be clear about this. Everything they're doing is because they're like, we could be making a boatload more money than we are, and you guys are leaving money on the table. Here are ways we think that money could be made. It's capitalism. It's a card-based company that we already know we gamble on. It's ridiculous. A lot of these things, but ultimately, though, if and I guess this is the side of capitalism where it works as intended, if they can get boatload of money and improve our experience as players, everybody theoretically wins. Um, Now the question is, they've talked like I've been reading while you've been talking. I've been reading their actual full presentation, a
Mhm.
100-page long,
Yes.
PowerPoint deck, and because I read really fast. And one of the things I'm noticing is a lot of what they've got is like they're just very angry at Hasbro decisions about things like GI Joe or Oni E1 or Peppa Pig, whatever it is, but they're not saying a lot about how they intend to solve the problems of Wizards. Okay, fine, you spin off Wizards, but do we still have the issues of like HR issues that we run into from when we hear about from employees or the healthcare issues? How are they going to make the life of the people who make Magic cards better? How are they going to make the experience better for all of us who buy them? What I'm reading is I want to raise prices for these guys because they can afford it. And that's
So 2
true.
things. One, the reason all that content is there about what because they're all also talking about like we by spinning off Wizards are going to also restructure Hasbro in a way that makes it more profitable, right? That's part of this plan. Otherwise, they don't get very far.
Mm,
And fine, I can't talk too much about everything that's going on in Hasbro's inner doors.
sure.
The and we don't know, like, right? That's what we don't know. They aren't currently addressing those issues. I will say that a HR department that is
Mm,
set in a 3,500 miles away in Rhode Island versus an HR department and infrastructure that's built within the building you're in is going to function with different priorities. Now,
sure.
HR is never your friend.
No.
So in both situations, and it's still like Wizards Coast is still going to be a $1.5 billion size company. That is still massive.
Yeah, they're not
So
gonna be a small scrappy company, let's be real.
right, like that concept doesn't exist. But do they have the ability to allocate their dollars in the right direction to the right departments? Yes. Do they answer to a company that's answering to a board versus answering to a board? Yes, that more direct line of communication is going to allow Wizards to react to problems they're facing a lot more easily or a lot more directly and invest in the right things. Could also allow them to just put all their money into stockholder hands, right? They could that is also a possibility. I don't feel like that's what's here. There are vibes here that are like I like how Magic used to be, and that's suspicious.
That's red light all over the place. Like, look,
Red flags.
yeah, red flags. Like, Magic as it used to be was a very small company, right? Like, Nobody wants, I mean, like, these guys wanna go back to Odyssey Block, Super Spike Down. Let's let's think about where we are. I mean, look, it ultimately, what I think is actually gonna happen out of this, and this is, uh, like, I think that legitimately that they're not gonna win their proposal, but I do think that some of their proposals will get through, because if they make enough of a stir and get enough notice, then their platform gets adopted by the shareholder board, because they're like, "Oh, there's an actual problem here. Maybe we can get this solution." And so
I
I think,
don't. I think it gets spun off. I think this
do you think
happens.
so? You think
Yeah,
so?
I think it does. I like. I think
Because
there
that's
are.
a big deal, man.
Yeah, I would bet. I mean, like, if I'm betting money, I guess I don't know, but like, there's a lot of good reasons to spin Wizards of the Coast off from Hasbro, regardless of any of the flaw conversations, regardless of any of the onus on like what Magic used to be and where you used to be able to make money in Magic. Like Magic spinning Wizards of the Coast spinning off from Hasbro just like makes sense based on how much money they're making and like the financial models of how Hasbro could make money off of Wizards as a separate entity versus as a part of it. The only reason it won't happen, the main reason it won't happen is if Hasbro is definitively counting on Wizards of the Coast's income in a like yearly basis to survive. And I don't
Right.
think they are. Like they are still making $250 million of profit off of their business, which is like a lot of dollars. It's not a high percentage of their income, but it is still a lot of dollars of profit. And there are other toy companies that are doing worse than that are doing fine. And they do have a lot of good points here on how to make Hasbro better or things Hasbro shouldn't be doing that they could
Mm,
maybe lead them in the right direction. Like that's part of this plan that does help make that happen. But like Wizards of the Coast just spinning off into its own company might be the one idea of all their ideas that just happens.
hmm.
Like they're making like and it became national news, right? Like just because it's on my radar, but I had friends who don't play Magic who were like, "Oh, I just got this alert." Like it was a push notification level news story.
Yeah, like, I saw it. I mean, it hit the Wall Street Journal, for God's sakes. It's a because Hasbro is such a big company, and Wizards is such a big part of it, that it's hard not to have this be national news. Like, I realize that a lot of people are sitting there like, "Yo, I don't necessarily know what Magic is or what D&D is," but there are a lot of people who do, and I
and
don't
and
know,
and
I
the
mean.
brand awareness of both and I think another part of the argument they're making is I think right now some of the barriers for any D&D movie or TV show or any Magic the Gathering movie or TV show or cartoon or whatever have been put into place because it's going through Hasbro's strategy and
Mm,
they don't mesh as brands. It's kind of the reason that like I don't know how
mhm.
Disney's going to do a Deadpool movie.
Yeah,
Right? Where it's like
yeah,
Hasbro's digital marketing team or company doesn't understand or Hasbro Studios doesn't necessarily understand the brands that Magic and this are because that they brought that up too, right? Is like Magic should be capitalizing on their two big brands more than they are.
yes.
And all of the attempts they've done have been like small licensing agreement with like small app companies or maybe action figure groups or peripheral product like Ultra Pro. But
Mhm,
yeah, I don't know. Like I've now had this conversation with 4 people. One of them was a financial advisor for pharmaceutical whatever is that just is like a Magic player and was like fascinated because same reason you asked me on this podcast, he understood it from a like finance perspective and understanding who the players are and what's going
mm,
on, but didn't understand what like Hasbro's life is like. And so wanted to talk to me about it for the reasons that I'm here, right? And like he walked into it kind of being like, I don't think this is a makes sense or is a good idea for XYZ reason. And by the end of it,
mhm.
he was like, oh, maybe this is a good idea.
Yeah, but then, I mean, the other question that we can't really answer right now is this the right group to be pushing for this right idea?
Well, but that doesn't matter.
You're
But
right.
it matters a little bit, right? Like if they're successful and then they get put into a place of power at Wizards and they cause direct harm, that sucks.
Mhm.
And that makes me sad. I
Well,
don't,
I'm also like, I mean, you're right, keep going.
but I don't it's a little bit of the damned with the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Like, I
Mhm.
know who John Finkel is, and that
Right.
that is why they picked him because he is giving some
That's
amount of confidence
exactly
to
why
people.
we're even talking about
Right.
this,
Then
because Finkel has enough of a presence that even casual scrubs maybe not the most casual, but if you're a Magic player, you know who John Finkel is, right? Like the other thing though is that Wizard just got new leadership, right? Chris Cox got promoted up to Hasbro Prime, and they just hired a new CEO lady and a new CTO to run their games division to do the digital games, and that in itself is going to bring quite a bit of change and like restructuring internally, probably because these things always do. So I think it's really interesting to see what happens with WotC in the short term, anyways, just with this new leadership structure, let alone with the spinoff. And with Cox taking over the big ship, he knows what Wizard was doing. He knows what was working and what wasn't working and what could have been capitalized more. He's got the ability to make these decisions without having Hasbro to stop him. So I think I think whether this spinoff happens or not, there's going to be changes coming anyways.
Yeah, I for sure there's changes happening, and one thing that was interesting about the financial report for this year was that it was actually pretty flat for Wizards, which
Mm,
is kind of pointing at that they don't have a lot of there's not more product being released this year, but also means that they don't have really plans for like Arena to grow much more than it's growing. Like they're expecting a flat year this year, which is I think another argument from these guys on like you should be capitalizing on the growth you had to do this. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like from the fact that Hasbro and Wizard of the Coast have always made some sense together, but not like a infinite amount of sense other than like the Hasbro is covering a department that Wizards is covering a section of the market that Hasbro normally doesn't call on. So
mhm,
diversifying uh from the fact that Wizard of the Coast just like on paper based on hand table math makes more sense as a separate company for Hasbro than as a part of their company, and from the perspective that there are things you can point at decision wise by both companies or by Hasbro in relationship to both companies that are pretty like if not damning mistakes like obvious mistakes. um
mm,
and some of it could be attributed to Hasbro not wanting to reinvest into Wizards because they want the money for themselves to be able to cover their other divisions that aren't doing as well.
hmm.
And just that library of issues is enough to with the middle one being the most important, that by spinning it off everyone makes more money that's involved. I like it there may it might it this stuff to happen takes a lot of work and takes a lot of specifics and a lot of things to go right, but like there's a lot of those things are true, and the thing people have issue with, the people in charge don't know, right? Like the vibe of the people in charge is not one of like, oh, I understand that the current Magic player is more commander focused than tournament focused. Like most people that own Hasbro stock don't know that information.
Right.
What they do here is like, oh, there is 16 professor videos, which are the most watched videos on YouTube, pointing out very distinct mistakes Wizards has made over the last 2 years. And
Anyways,
I don't know what I
I
even hope for. Like that's I think my biggest dilemma is I don't know what I want to happen. And by the way, it's just for the like when I said I own like 9 shares, so it's not. And like I'm not like I do want to
you're
point
not
out
an
that
activist inventor.
I'm like sitting here being like, oh yeah, I own 1,000 shares of Hasbro. I'm going to make $1 million. No, like I owe
You're gonna make like
like
$12.
I think I own like yeah now because it has gone up. I bought it when it was like during COVID and everyone thought everyone was going to do terrible. I bought like 10 shares, and so I've made like I doubled that amount of money. As is, and I'm
Congratulations,
happy.
you're a tenionaire.
I made like yeah $500. Great.
Yay! You spent
um,
you congratulations, you earned enough to buy a box of
Yeah,
cards.
I think I made more money off of buying Arclight Phoenixes than I did buying Hasbro shares. So what, I do want to preface that like me being positive on this or even neutrally okay with it is not me being like, oh yeah, because I'm going to make dollars on it. It's more just I
I
think
want Magic to succeed.
I want Magic to succeed and I want it to be the best it could possibly be. And there's an argument that its lack of cultural relevance within the world is because it's been an arm of Hasbro that didn't need it to be. Right.
Mm.
Hasbro never like the fact that Wizards is growing so much is great for Hasbro, but Hasbro is like, oh yeah, you make $500 million a year. That's mostly profit for us because you make cardboards and you have really high
Yeah, it's
design
like,
costs,
"Hey,
but
we
it's
don't
of
have to
course
do
saleable.
anything with you or about you. You just hand out you give us money every year, and It's like you write us a check and then we like send you a Christmas card. Good night.
Right.
Uh,
And so why do we care that you're like a household brand? Why do we need to work with Hollywood to try and get a Magic the
yeah,
Gathering
it's
TV
like
show made?
yeah,
Super
because they're
hard.
like, look, the second you're not profitable, we'll kill you, and then that'll be not our problem anymore,
Right.
anyways.
Especially when you add the layer that like so me and I don't know if this was a while ago. Me and Ben got the original casting announcement when they were doing the like Magic the Gathering movie.
Hmm.
It got like leaked to Ben from a friend who was working in casting, and it was the worst movie like pitch I've ever read. And it was like very different than the Magic
Well,
story. It
I
was
don't
like,
know if you've seen the D&D movies, but
yes,
they're boxes
yeah,
of
yeah.
garbage.
It was like Tezzeret is hunting down the Gatewatch because he wants the Black Lotus because it can heal his
Sure, why
some
not?
virus
Let's
that
go
he
with it.
has, and Chandra has to defeat. It was like some of it was cool, but some of it was like super cringe, and it's because it was like going through 3 levels of translation to get to whoever was doing the casting. And like if Wizards can be more directly involved in that process, we're going to get more stuff like what Kamigawa's launch is. Like that's the thing
Yeah,
that I'm like super
Kamigawa is
high
just
on.
Kamigawa shows me what they could be doing.
Like
It is
I want
such a stellar everything from a marketing perspective, a PR perspective, and just the way they did an omni-channel approach to this game, visual novel, a soundtrack, the anime intro with a real company doing the anime, all of the things they did. This is like the best launch they've ever done. I think
yeah,
it's clear to say.
I think the closest is War of the Spark, and that was
Yeah,
very hurt by the books afterwards.
yeah, the
Like
book just completely killed what was genius
I know,
about
like the
that.
thing with War of the Spark that sucks is it's Blake who does PR for Wizards is like grandest achievement in preview seasoning. Like it is a
Yeah,
opus. It is
it
the
was
fact
like
that he had
absolute
every content creator on the internet got a preview card that was released in order of its
and
relevance to the story.
the trailer for War of the
Oh yeah.
Spark was just like
Starting with
and then the
that,
novel came out and just, like, crashed
and
the
I was like,
train
"Oh,
into
this
a
is
wall.
terrible." And I was like, "Wait, but it was good before this
Uh,
novel came out."
yeah, it's like and I'm like, "You know
Don't read
what? The
it.
story, as far as I'm concerned, stopped with that trailer. We're done."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oh, the preview season and what's on the cards and the trailer that went with it is what my version of the War of the Spark and the Magic the Gathering story. And they've
yeah,
even retconned most of what happened in the books, anyways,
because
to the extent that everyone says Dovin is dead, but I bet we see Dovin.
yeah, but Kamigawa, though, they fixed all those problems. They've got continuity. It works. It's genius. The new team there is just absolutely brilliant.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of faith in, their struggles. I don't know, man, I hope this works out, and I hope they don't try to be, like, unwoking D&D and unwoking, like,
Yeah,
Wizards.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will for two reasons.
I
One
don't think
is
they're gonna have so much direct control over it.
they want to have that like that there's still the whole team under them, right? And I also think that like the whole like woke broke concept is wrong and
Yes.
demonstrably wrong. The amount of things you can point to that was like, oh, by this being more inclusive, we made more money is very large from Fast and the Furious movies to Black Panther to
Literally all the things.
all of the things I can keep talking about. So like it's not like from a financial perspective that's not really valuable to them. And I don't think like and then on top of that the people that are against it have crashed and burned. Like the new TSR crash and burn was so thorough and disgusting that was
Oh
like
my god.
no one who's in finance is going to be like, yeah, those guys are the smart ones. So like I'm not really worried about that. I do think that like there's there's a piece of this is also Arcane, which we haven't really talked about, but the show Arcane for the League of Legends
Oh,
show.
I was
All right.
like, arcane,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
confusing?
The mechanic Arcane not being in Kamigawa. That's the straw that broke the Hasbro back. Get Hasbro out of here. How is Arcane? No. Uh, the show Arcane, which is the League of Legends Netflix show that came out in October,
I
which
watched
became
an
a
episode of that.
massive phenomenon. I do recommend finishing it. It is very, very good. And by the episode 3, you will be hooked. And the success of that was massive. The amount of growth that League of Legends had as a brand, the amount of growth League of Legends' properties from Runes of Torterra,
Runeterra?
Runeterra. Legend. What's the card game? Legends of Runeterra.
Legends of Rune I
Thank
don't
you.
know,
Okay.
man, I play
What
Magic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Runeterra, TFT, League of Legends. League of Legends is a game that is not friendly for new players, and it had massive growth
No,
because
it is not even remotely it is like
and it was because they did a good TV show. that
Turns out.
cared about the story and wrote a good plot and had the time to work on that story over years to come up with the right team to tell a great story that is all of the
I think it's gonna be the
diversity
model going
and
forward. It's gotta be.
correct. And so I think they saw that and they're like, why? Like I don't think that's the cause, but I think that's another piece of this puzzle, right? They
Yeah,
very
I'm sure they
publicly,
looked at Arcane and were like, "We can do that. We have the money to do that."
yeah. Like look at there's two main card games now, really, because
Mm.
Hearthstone has fallen to the wayside because of all of the issues at Activision, and you're like, and you have Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Magic, and then in the digital space, you kind of have Arena, you have Legends of Runeterra, and then you have a bunch of next level things. With Hearthstone just still being massive because it will always be, and like one of those three things was able to get to the table really and be a part of this conversation because of doing a Netflix series. And if you look at on the PowerPoint slide 19, it's like they have 50 million players who have exclusively come from word of mouth with minimal advertising that has only really started over the last 2 years for Arena and no TV show or previous content around the
Right,
brand.
like, if we had what even one trailer in front of a movie or something, just, I mean, you're right. I think that there's so much money being left on the table. There's probably direct mismanagement going on, but that's because I think they're not incentivized to want to push it. Just because it's doing so well on its own, they're like, "It's making us $1 billion, who cares? Leave it alone." But that, I guess, is the whole premise of this entire episode, is that these guys think that you should be doing something. You shouldn't just be passively raking in the money. So we'll see where this goes. But you know what, Kessler? It has been a long
It is, yeah, a
time of
long
this
podcast.
episode. And so, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for teaching us today. This is fascinating to me. I hope
Hopefully,
the audience hangs out and likes it too.
same. Hopefully, it wasn't
Um,
too
Esoteric or businessy.
well all over the place. I think
No,
you
but
and
the
me
thing is,
went over.
we you kept it pretty on track. Like
Okay,
you
cool.
definitely had a thesis and you followed through, and I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Uh,
final, I guess, final statement on it is it's scary. I have no idea if it's going to be good or bad. I think it's going to happen, and it's going to be a wild ride to see what happens.
it's gonna be real fun. But if people wanted to find you,
Hopefully.
where'd they go?
Yeah. So I Twitter at Cass Wiley, and then basically on every other social media at Cass Wiley. Probably my second two most important was the MMCast YouTube channel. So we do Masters of Modern, but we also do a bunch of other kind of content. We interviewed Jim from the Spike Feeders, and we did a whole breakdown on the difference between casual and competitive Magic players, both in Modern and in Commander. We interviewed Michelle Rapp about Magic Story. We interviewed Vorthos Mike on Magic Cards. We've been doing a series all over the place recently, so definitely check that out at the MMCast on Twitter, and then TikTok would be the other big one. So if you're a TikTok
Hmm.
person, follow me at Cass Wiley, same as Twitter. Those are my two like biggest platforms. And if you want toys, go to kess.co,
Thank you for selling
KESS.co.
yourself finally. Jesus Christ.
Well, your audience is mostly Magic players. So we do have a game called Battle Bosses. So that is Magic adjacent
Yeah,
in
but these
content.
people have kids too.
Yeah. And we make balls and hoops. And honestly, if you just go to a store and buy a hoop,
That's good
preferably a
enough.
Walmart or a Target, I am just going to be massively appreciative. And then we make puzzles too. If you like puzzles, we have a big announcement coming up in puzzles, but I can't do it yet. And I wish I could on the show, but keep posted. If you like anime, it's adjacent to that. And yeah, thanks everyone.
Cool. And as always, you can find me at Gear Report Gears. You can find the show anywhere podcasts are sold or at Cool Stuff Inc. every Tuesday. Show is brought to you by Cool Stuff, Coalesce, and Archidekt. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering. And we will see you next time.